Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Janelle Weekly, Photographic Collections Manager at the Arizona State Museum, and I will serve as your host this evening. The Arizona State Museum is part of the University of Arizona, and we are located in Tucson. We are situated on land that has been stewarded by and home to Indigenous peoples for at least 13,000 years. Today, the Tucson area is home to the O'odham and the Pasquayaki, and there are currently 22 federally recognized Native nations with ancestral and reservation lands in the state of Arizona. The museum's collections and research focus on the Indigenous peoples of the U.S. Southwest and Northwest Mexico, and we present programs exploring the history and cultures of this region. Tonight's talk is offered in conjunction with the exhibit, The Ultimate Sophistication, currently showing at the Arizona State Museum. If you live in the Tucson area, it will be up until December 21st, so please come by and see it. The exhibit and this program are part of ASM's initiative to feature Indigenous photographers and acquire some of their work. With the help of a generous grant from the Mellon Foundation, we were able to purchase 2 prints by tonight's featured speaker. Receiving the Mellon Foundation support for this initiative is a dream come true. I have for years wanted to strengthen the museum's photographic collections with contemporary works. With the help of Jennifer Wan, Assistant Director of Community Engagement, I became aware of Kyle Knox's work on Instagram. I was taken by the positivity and inclusiveness of his photography and learned about his partnership with Cahokia Social Tech Plus Art Space in Phoenix. Melody Lewis, one of the co-founding members of Cahokia, is with us tonight, and we will also be hearing from her. And she will even be giving away some prizes right after the Q&A, so you definitely want to stick around for that. Photographer Kyle Knox is Hopi, Akimel Oatam, and Pee-Posh, and is an enrolled member of the Gila River Indian community. He grew up in Phoenix and earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Film and Media Production at Arizona State University. At ASU, he cultivated his visual storytelling skills while drawing on his Hopi and O'odham heritage. He is the managing editor of the Gila River Indian News, and I love that its acronym is GRIN, the newspaper for the Gila River Indian community. He also serves on the advisory board for the Akimel O'odham Pee-Posh Youth Council, providing guidance and resources to support the next generation of leaders in his community. Melody Lewis is a social entrepreneur and co-founding member of Cahokia Social Tech Art Space. She is dedicated to serving Indigenous communities and individuals within the systems of workforce development, education, and economic development, utilizing collaborative approaches rooted in Indigenous identity. Her career blends her experience of social work, education, and workforce development to create participant-centered programs. Melody is Mojave, Chewa, Hopi, and an enrolled member of the Fort Mojave Indian tribe. It is my pleasure now to turn it over to Kyle and Melody.
Good evening, everybody. Apologies for that. I was on mute, but happy to have you all here for what's we hope to be an exciting endeavor into what is the Ultimate Sophistication. It's a great photo exhibition that I really put my heart and soul into with the help of my collaborators. But first and foremost, I just want to introduce myself. Traditionally, Anya An Ap Chugik, Kyle Knox, Anya Amjad, Gila River Kuri Akimel, and like it was mentioned, I am from the Gila River Indian community, and I reside in the District 7 Maricopa Colony area in the western region of the Gila River Indian community. I am also Hopi, Nehonao Yan Hopi Matsua, by Pinekyang So as a Hopi, I always introduce myself and where I'm from, which is from the Kikosmovi village in the Third Mesa area, and I'm Coyote Clan. And so welcome everybody. Before I move on, I want to allow Melody Lewis to introduce herself as well.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for asking me to be co-guesting, I guess the word is here. But Gamalu, everybody. My name is Melody Lewis, and I'm a Mojave Tewa Hopi from the former Mojave Indian tribe. And the work that I do specifically in regards to working with Kyle is specifically just to support and uplift the work that's currently being done through the Cahokia social tech and art space. And we're located in downtown Phoenix. Myself, along with Unique Yazi and Candice Amana, here operate the space, and we currently have 20 members. But the other company that I own is with Indigenous Community Collaborative, and we do a lot of youth programming work within Indigenous identity realms, serving the Phoenix area and surrounding tribal communities. And again, I'm so happy to be here and happy to support Kyle. And just curious to know if anyone's, on now, if you could just drop in the chat where you're coming from and what type of work you're doing. That would be fun to see. And I'm going to turn it back over to Kyle and support any questions or anything you guys have in the chat if you need that as well.
We are ready to go. And I have to warn everybody that there is some photos that are a little explicit, if you will, but the genesis of the ultimate sophistication, just to give everybody some background, is re-examining who and what we looked like pre-contact. Depicting what that could look like was difficult to really understand for us in this day and age, but a lot of what we have to rely on are historical photos. So, we always reference Edward Curtis and his work that he did throughout Indian country at a period in time where there wasn't as much influence either from Europe or from the Americans that were now occupying areas near Indian country. So these are some of the historic photos that I always saw. And so what I always wanted to do was, or what I always had a passion about as a person, as a filmmaker, as a student of my culture, was to always look back at what it really meant to be Indigenous. And for me, as a person who is Indigenous of 3 different tribes, I was always rooted in everything Indigenous, and to me that's everything original. So that meant everything from language to our culture to the taboos, the things we do, the way we grow our hair out, anything and everything. And then as part of that, that also includes fashion. And what I was always fascinated with is how fashion really was a reflection of the ingenious nature of our community, because while it might have been exoticized or might have looked exotic to some folks, it was ultimately a necessity. And as part of that, from the baskets used for utility and carrying things to the minimal dress because of the desert environments, it was something that I thought that would be really great to capture, not only because of its just how it could look, but the big thing I was really interested in, examining was how it would look like with today's technology. Instead of solely relying on these images that we constantly reference, I wanted to see if there was a way that somebody could update that and see what that could look like. And after asking myself, why isn't anybody doing this for years, it really boiled down to me just taking a proactive nature and saying, why not me? With my background in film and photography, I realized that if anybody was going to do this, it was going to be somebody like me, because I had the vision and I got a little too tired of waiting for somebody else to do it. And so I did so in the best way that I could, that was, spoke to the history of my peoples, but also was tasteful, if you will, and respectable. And as you'll see in some of what you'll see in both the video that we'll be showing later and some of the example images, I feel like I was able to accomplish that. So the ultimate sophistication now, this graphic was designed by somebody you'll meet later on in the presentation, but in essence, this is a depiction of the 6 models that participated in this. When I delved into this whole thing, literally it hasn't even been a year since my first photo shoot for this project. Yesterday, or the 18th, was when I first put out the call out, but I had no idea what the name would be or what it would look like. I just knew I wanted to shoot these frames and I wanted to capture something special. I knew that it was going to have to take some responsible handling in order for it to, have the right audience, if you will, because as you saw in the images previously, I didn't know what it might look like, what it could shape out to be. But as I started really examining that particular idea of the fashion for autumn, I realized how simple it was. Tracing it back to even my Hopi side, the same applies. We're very, very simple people. When we look to the autumn specifically, both male and female individuals did wear tops because in the Sonoran Desert, it's pretty hot. Taking that into account, I didn't know what I was going to get into. So understanding that simplicity, it made me realize and reference back to the quote by Leonardo da Vinci, and that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And for me, this idea of the ultimate sophistication, it just breeds this idea of elegance and class. And it was something that isn't always associated with these particular images that we might find. So it was a way of kind of flipping that idea and notion of, an uncivilized group of people, but having us realize that it is really a, sophisticated lifestyle that we were living, because we were utilizing natural resources to create the clothes that we were wearing at that time. And so that's where the name came from. And my idea was to show that visually through the attire. So Darlene, if you wouldn't mind. The biggest way that I was able to accomplish this, and what was also a challenge in the beginning, was that I did not know or have any of the clothes that were available for what this project could look like. And through Instagram, similar to how we all got here today, I befriended a gentleman by the name of Philip Smith, who's from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. He's an artist. He always would depict these cartoons in various ways, as you see on the left. In the center is his mother, and when I saw this image, I really gravitated towards it because it reflected what I kind of wanted to capture. Nowadays, everybody has a phone, and although it's a beautiful image, I really just had to take a leap of faith and ask him if I can do a similar image, but with some, if his mother wanted to, I would have done the same thing. But I also wanted to see if there would be other young individuals that might be willing to do, model his whatever it is he had. So our connection was really just organic. He believed in this idea that I had, and when I found out he was a weaver, he was able to make burden baskets, and he had all the knowledge and the cultural understanding of the significance of these items, I knew he was a perfect fit. But it was never anything where it was like, let me borrow this, let me use this for a day. He was there at every shoot. He was there for every pre-production meeting. And he definitely is probably the key ingredient, if you will, that helped make this possible, because he served as the cultural advisor for everything you see, from the attire to making it, to the specific tattoos you'll see on the women's faces, to the paint and the hair and everything of that sort. So he was really critical, and I owe him a lot for allowing us to utilize all of his beautiful work that he shared with us. Darlene? So as I mentioned, there was a call that went out, and this specific call, as you'll see, my first shot was just a shot in the dark. I mentioned that I work with youth, and this is a photo shoot that I did with my youth for a water rights day celebration that GRIC hosts. And I used that image because when I shared it, a lot of people gravitated to it, and that kind of gave me a little inspiration to say, hey, Kyle, maybe you can do that. If I can produce something that looks similar to this, but utilizing that clothing and that look and that aesthetic that I was hoping for, then it would be really something to marvel at, is what I thought. So I put this out, and if you can see it on your screen, you'll see one line that's very specific. And it says that it's in the center right above, it says non-contemporary photo shoot. And it's kind of a contradiction when you see this flyer, because what they're wearing, it's emblematic of what I wanted to show in terms of the quality of photography, but what they're wearing is contemporary. So a lot of days, or a lot of times nowadays, this is what you'll find modern Autumn girls wearing, girls and women. And it is shiny, it's patterned, it's updated, there's ribbons, a lot of stuff has been changed from what we originally knew it as. So on the bottom, you'll even see that there's specifically a preference for individuals that have their own non-satin / sheer tops and bottoms. That was the key thing that stopped a lot of people from wanting to be involved, because unfortunately, a lot of our community members, be it Salt River, Don Autumn, Akimel Autumn, Akchin, a lot of them don't have access to those pieces of clothing. As I said, not having those items is what stopped me. So when Philip came into the picture, that's what really sealed the deal. So that was a preference, but it did not stop us. But because that was the preference and it was non-contemporary, a lot of people understood what our traditional clothing looked like. And that was also something I had to work with the individuals that were going to come and be a part of this to really iron out and get their trust, because for all I know, they were going to think, well, what does he want to do? Take topless photos, which was not the case at all. But I had to assure them that this was going to be something special, and whatever they were willing to share with me during this time was going to be something that would be special, and it wouldn't be seen by a lot of people. And that's really, really critical to the pieces in which Cahokia catapulted my vision to the next level of ensuring that this project became what it is today. And I can't thank them enough. But in reality, when I found my models, I knew that I had to build a relationship with them. I only met one model prior to the first day of meeting on October 24th, 2021. The rest of them, it was sight unseen, but I had to establish that rapport for them to trust me, because as you'll see in the video, they're posing and wearing items and showing a little bit more of themselves that they might have not have otherwise, but they decided to, for reasons that you'll learn as we roll into the video presentation that outlines and shares a little bit about the models, why they participated, and they do it in ways that I can't express myself, so I'd rather you hear it from them and from Philip Smith as well. It's a very special video presentation that was created by Zachary Redbird from Gila River. He did a phenomenal job in producing this video. He was part of my team, and like Philip and the models, he was there from day one, from pre-production to the show. So I hope you all enjoy. It's more than what I can offer within 7 minutes.
When people ask us if we're indigenous, we're very unique. We're one of the very few tribes that come from the deserts, and we come from one of the hottest deserts.
I just think it's important to know who we are and where we come from so we don't lose sight of that.
It's a better understanding of us as Autumn people, how we used to live, how we have evolved, especially with, our traditional wear.
I just think it's beautiful, like how far we've come.
In 3 words, when you think of the ultimate sophistication.
Compelling, forceful, and strength.
Balance, simplified, and necessary.
Ancient, dweller, heirloom.
Elegant, proper, like high class, I guess.
Classy or classic, timeless, and I don't know the word, ingenuitive, just ingenious, yes, thank you.
How I got introduced to this project was through Kyle. He messaged me through Instagram, and I was very excited to see what he wanted. He just asked me if I had any traditional stuff available, and I was like, yes. Seeing how he explained how his vision was and what he was wanting to showcase, I was very surprised and very excited.
Yes, so I actually seen a flyer, so I sent the flyer to my friend, and I was like, hey, do you want to do this? And she goes, if you're gonna do it, I'll do it. So it was kind of like a teamwork.
I thought it was a really beautiful, cool concept, and I really thought it was a great idea to really spotlight and showcase and highlight our beautiful women, our O'odham women.
I really love the concept behind it and being able to educate people on what we looked like before the contact.
I am wearing a traditional wraparound that was used during pre-contact times, a muslin wraparound with a nude top, which represents how the women back then would wear bare-chested, beaded shell strands around my neck, and a basket that is made out of devil's claw and willow that was used to gather crops or water or whatever that was needed for a woman's journey back home for her family.
She is wearing a matted shawl, which is also pretty much not just to cover her up, but also to use kind of like as a sitting mat as well. So it's pretty much a shawl, a cloak, and just a sleeping material. And then she has a grass skirt, which is very similar to the traditional cottonwood bark or willow bark. And then on her back is the traditional burden basket, which she would have been using to go gather firewood or to carry large burdens. And then on her face is the traditional tattoos, which is common. Usually it's either just on the chin and also the sides of the face. She also has multi-strands of shells. When it comes to the shells, traditionally women would wear strands of shells that were smaller ones, but for most of the time I just go by the usual white strands, because that was usually what you always see in most historical archives of pictures or what's been written down, and it was usually the easiest shells to get were the smaller shells. All right, so what she's wearing is pretty much like a mixed costume. This is post-contact, meaning that there's now using muslin or simple pieces of fabric mixed with the grass skirt. Same simple setup. Markings or the tattoos on her face are again similar to the last one.
Yeah, it kind of like hurt my head neck a little bit, but it was really cool just like knowing like this is what our people carried around in their time. It was really like honoring just because like someone actually made that, and just being able to wear their work was really cool. I was a little nervous at first just because I didn't know anybody really besides one of my friends that was a part of the project, so it was just nice to meet everybody. I wasn't comfortable yet until I started talking to everybody and everybody started to open up. I thought it was really cool just seeing how like there's different girls, that I never really met from different tribes.
And we all sort of grew up the same way, so we had a lot to joke about. And I think that's what made me comfortable.
I think overall it was a really good environment because Kyle really made us all feel really comfortable. And when we're able to kind of introduce ourselves and be more comfortable with each other, at that point we were able to kind of joke around and have a little fun with that too. So it made us all really comfortable. And I was really nervous being in the water because I don't know how to swim, unfortunately. So it was really hard, like being in the river, the water's moving really fast and it's really powerful. So that was kind of tough for me, but I just tried to frame my mind back into the meaning of this and just pushing forward through it as well.
It was very cold, my body was shaking uncontrollably, but then once the sun came up, I really warmed up, and that really is a true testament to what it was like for our people, like our women in such minimal clothing in that era. Same thing with going in the water. I don't want to say I wasn't scared because I wasn't fearful, I just kept reflecting back to what our women had to do, what they had to go through on a day-to-day basis, and just thinking how really cool to try to put myself in their shoes directly and really come with as much strength as I could to just bear it and not complain or not whine or cry, just be as strong as I could to go in the water, and I don't know how to swim and it's freezing cold.
Honestly, when I saw everything come together, I felt it very much was very unique and very, I would say, very true to the concept of it being very closely authentic, because it was awe-inspiring. It was, it was exciting to see it be put together, put to actual practice.
As O'odham people, as Indigenous people, I think we're very strong, and I just want us to be seen, really.
Just have a better understanding of our history, and going forward being more open to learning about the things that they don't know and not assuming certain things about our community.
Our people were able to survive. Our people were master dwellers of the desert, being able to utilize all of the plants and the vegetation, and we have a very beautiful ecosystem, and that's what connects us here to the desert.
For me, I hope that people, when they look at these photos, they see, how different our culture was to modern interpretation of what they know as being Indigenous people. I hope that they actually get to see the true range or the true culture of it. That information is still here, and that we are still holding on to that tradition.
I hope you all enjoyed it. Like I said, Zachary Redbird produced that, and he was integral to ensuring that it was a success and capturing all of this, because the biggest thing, and if I can just circle back to part of the intention for this, was the biggest thing that I wanted to stress in this moment. I had a mirror set up during our photo shoot, and I was in awe in what I was witnessing in the reflection, because I had this idea. I never thought it would have been possible, but people came and answered the call, if you will, and it was just awe-inspiring for me as well. But at the end of the day, another big portion of the goals that I had with this project was, as somebody said in the film, is to be seen. The work that I do is to try and capture things, but I also want it to be shown, and so or visible. Not only for Indigenous peoples, but also us as who we are, either as an O'odham, as a Hopi, as Mojave, as Tewa, and we all have a specific look. And a big thing I wanted to do with this project was to create or establish more readily accessible views of what O'odham look like. And that's what this project was for, because no disrespect to any groups of any sort, but imagery for Indigenous and Native people seem to always be the same. And so I wanted to create some images that we could use that will, when you think of Arizona natives, you would think of these images. And or if you're thinking of the southern Arizona, you can think of these images and they can be used. So that was a huge goal for me. But I knew that it would have to be released in a way that was good and that wasn't going to be on cell phones or anything of that sort. And so I wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to present these images in the best way possible, because I didn't want to show these women, partially clothed without some kind of safeguards to make sure they weren't going to be spread like wildfire. And that brings us to Cahokia, who has elevated numerous artists, creatives throughout the state, and they were integral to making this all happen. So I want to turn this the time over to Melody to share what Cahokia does and how they really facilitated this particular project.
So first, watching that video, I think I've seen that film about your ultimate sophistication many times, and every time I see it, it just gives me a lot of fuel and energy and excitement to see it all over again. And it's taking me right back to the day we saw those photos. So I'm going to just start out by talking about Cahokia really quickly. So, Cahokia, for those of you that don't know the place, it was actually a place that existed before Columbus came. And it was a place where Indigenous people would meet to create, innovate, and exchange ideas. And so you would have tribes from different areas of what we call Turtle Island coming to exchange goods, to share resources, to trade. And you would have present day Mexico coming, bringing agricultural knowledge. You would have coastal tribes bringing shells and fishery knowledge, and they would all meet there. And so we called our space that, is because we want it to be the modern day version where Indigenous people meet to create, innovate, and exchange ideas. Myself, along with Unique Yazi, visioned this place to be a place where Indigenous people in the middle of a major metropolitan area could come together to do those types of ideas and projects to impact our Native communities. As you heard at the beginning of this presentation, there are 22 tribal nations across Arizona, 574 across the United States. And every single one of us has a different background, different customs, different language, different resources, but oftentimes you see us, sometimes it's generalized. Like Kyle was saying, you know, he's of a couple different tribes from different communities, as am I, Mojave, Tewa, and Hopi. And my 3 tribes alone have some distinct differences. Now, with the space here, you know, Phoenix is one of the top 5, well, actually the #1 state to have the most urban Indigenous population here in Phoenix. And so basically what we're trying to do here is be this platform to launch ideas by contributing, every single one of the person that's in this space, contributing our skill sets and our knowledge to help uplift that idea or that project. So what we hope to do in this space, so again, we're located in Roosevelt Row Arts District. We're on 3rd Street and McKinley at the end of the Roosevelt Row Arts District in downtown Phoenix. And basically what we're trying to do is empower Indigenous voices through our space. We are a 3,000 square space. I'm in it now, I'm kind of looking around, but in our space, we are an avenue for creatives and entrepreneurs to, again, launch those ideas and launch those projects that they have, that they've always wanted to do. And specifically, we're trying to support emerging and startup creatives and entrepreneurs. So if you were to walk into our space, the very front part of this space is retail, currently sitting in the gallery space where it functions as a co-create space. So it's all kinds of things. It's an event space. We've held workshops here. And then moving into the back, we have areas where people could pop up to work. We actually have some folks here now that are working. And ultimately, like I said, it's an avenue for all of us to launch ideas and to do the work, to, like Kyle said, be heard and be seen in a place that has often generalized us or not, has often not even asked for our perspective. And so now we are in this space, creating and sharing our stories. And so this here is kind of some of the 3 things that are our mission. It's to indigenize and create bridges through understanding and revitalizing the Indigenous perspective. We're wanting to create generational impact through every initiative that we have here to ultimately amplify Indigenous voices. And so now kind of, and then ultimately how this idea came to be. And so again, we are a 100% Indigenous-led space. We have about 20 members and about 70 ambassadors now. I think we have a lot. And of those membership, we function off a consensus decision-making model. So everything that happens in this space is determined and defined by those members and ambassadors. So we meet every week on Mondays, and every Monday, the members and ambassadors propose projects. And, you know, Kyle, I just remember this so clearly. On that day, Kyle says, you know, I think one of our famous statements here is like, you know, it would be cool, it would be cool if I launched this idea or I did this project. And August of 2021 is when Kyle approached and says, you know, I've been toying around with this idea. I think I want to, try and do my first gallery show. And I said, cool, let's pitch it to the team. And on a Monday, he came and pitched the idea to the team of doing a photography gallery show, and I don't think he thought he was going to get as much. I don't know what he was thinking, but really, like the second he left that meeting, we had defined a date and a time, and it was on the calendar, so it was scheduled. So I don't think he was expecting to have a date for his gallery show. And that was in August 2021. And over that time, I think from August until, leading all the way up to his event, we had little meetings. He would come back and present, but basically it was to help, contributing skill sets and ideas and thoughts around his gallery show. Everybody in this space helped contribute to fostering that idea, and kind of just gave him resources and like project management and budget and timelines and all those good things. So that was a lot of fun, and I remember it to this day, leading up to that. And I think for this, again, it goes back to like amplifying the idea, but just supporting like emerging and startup artists in the space. We host a lot of different types of events. And I think with Kyle's project, it really goes to show some of the things, like if you heard the girls' stories, the impact it makes when you make the choice and the decision to be vulnerable and to release your work into the world. That impact is profound for our communities. His project alone has given access to knowledge to his community about traditional wear. It helps them build community, and it helps build perspective and kind of put yourself in the place of our ancestors. And it builds us perspective. So we were so more than grateful to support Kyle and help him launch this idea. So again, these are community members and ambassadors of our space. And I just wanted to put that out here because this space wouldn't be what it was without our members and ambassadors. Yeah, so then I'll turn it over back to Kyle because this is the opening event and it kind of just makes me smile just looking at it. And do you have any, feedback you want to add to the launch of your project?
There's really nothing I can say that you haven't said, but this is just a prime example of what Cahokia is doing in Phoenix for our communities. This is a shot that was taken by my colleague who was a volunteer that night. And this was the night of the opening. Everything was covered. I did not want anybody to see these images. Even when I pitched, I had a limited amount of photos that I shared just to give as examples. And so leading up to that day, those black curtains you see on the side were covering everything. The programming for the event featured song, dancing from my youth. We had autumn food that was served. There was a lot of good stuff that happened, and eventually within the last hour and a half of the programming, the curtains came down and there was an audible and it was something I'll never forget, but everybody really gravitated and loved the images. And this particular image just shows what that looked like. And my gallery there was just simple, but it was enough for everybody to get a really good glimpse of what I envisioned and the images I wanted to share with the world. And as you'll see, like I said, and to Melody's point, I knew these women would be vulnerable and I didn't. And for that reason, and for myself as an artist, I didn't feel like these would have had the justice they deserve or the viewership that I would like to have seen if it was on social media. So that's why I went the route for a gallery. And thankfully, it was popular enough that it generated enough interest from various parties, including the Arizona State Museum. So I'll just wrap it up in this next few slides, Darlene, if you wouldn't mind. But the ripple effects that I'm loving to see is the person like you see from Tiffany Eno, she actually is a graphic designer and designed our logo. And she actually has ran with this idea, and she now currently paints in the fashion of the ultimate sophistication and cites it as inspiration. This is from a gallery opening from 2 Fridays ago. The one on the right, the photo is energy that she cites directly from the ultimate sophistication from one of the images. Darlene, if you would go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the one that she references, and this is where she just said that, she realized that this person was wearing this heavy item on her head, and just like the theme was about rematriating, and she felt like that's what a woman does, is physically, mentally, emotionally, you carry burdens of others, whether it be your family, your children, and things of that sort. But no matter what, your energy still is there, whether you know it or not. And she felt like this was that inspiration. So the ripples and the after effects are profound, and I love to see it every time. Another good example too. These are more stickers that she created, Tiffany, that are Avatar, in the fashion of Avatar, The Last Airbender, where she created the different elements with optimized airbenders, which is really cool. Those were like one of her fastest selling items on her store. So it's just a testament that, people want to see these images, which is helpful, but which is reassuring, I should say, not helpful. And then the last thing I want to show while I wrap up, one of the models actually has a mother, and as it said, Danielle Mercado, who was a model for my project, her mother is a fashion designer and creates indigenous clothing, and this is a item that her outfit that she's modeling is derived from the outfit that she donned from the Ultimate Sophistication. This was from a modeling fashion show that occurred during Cahokia's Indigenous Peoples Day Phoenix Fest, which was really, really amazing to see. It was really humbling for me to see her mother take the design and make it fashionista-ish. I don't know what you call it, but it's just like, if that was in a designer store, I'm sure people would buy. I would like to think that, but it's very, very chic, and it's a take and a twist on what our people look like. And that's something, until this day, until that night, you would have never seen that. And I don't think anybody would have ever dreamed of or even conceived the idea of creating something like this without this project. So I only hope that this continues to inspire artists, designers, and help educate everybody, and ask those questions of what we look like prior to contact, or post-contact, early contact, because I think it's important for us to understand how ingenious and intuitive we were with our surroundings to create the fashion that we made. And it's a testament to who we are as Indigenous peoples, and the original caretakers and stewards of this land that we live on. So that's all I'll say for now, but I know we have a little time for some questions. So I just want to make time for that, as well as the raffle and swag giveaway as well. But the contact information you see is there. Melody, I'll let you share anything you want to about this particular slide.
No, just mostly that, again, we're located in downtown Phoenix. We're the first Indigenous owned art space and gallery space in Roosevelt Row in downtown Phoenix. And the event that Kyle referred to last week, we held the first Indigenous Peoples Day block party to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. And, just to get back to amplifying the work of Indigenous people, really what we're trying to do is create access and create space that's culturally safe for our community to come in to do work. I call it like, I'm born and raised on the reservation, and being able to create a home in the middle of the city is quite exciting. And to meet folks like Kyle and then continue to do work, that's the impact that we're hoping to see in the space. And again, it's been a privilege and an honor to be a part of this work and this effort, and to do this work alongside Kyle. And this is just our website. Like I said, myself and Unique Yarsi just collaborated together because we had skill sets, and we came together to form this space. And we never, in our wildest dreams, I don't know, we didn't know what it was going to become. And we're just so excited to be able to share and give back to our communities, so we could be seen and be heard. So yeah, you can visit our websites there. And that's all I got. I guess we'll open it up for a Q&A, I guess.
Thank you, Kyle and Melody. If you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A. Chat is disabled, so use the Q&A. The first question we have is, what is the significance of the facial tattoos?
Yeah, depending on who you ask, great question, by the way, Eileen. But from my understanding, the various face tattoos are signifiers of a stage in a person's life. Specifically for O'odham women, you'll often find the tattoos near the sides of the eyes for different periods in their life. And then you'll also find them on the bottom of their or on their chin, if you will, representing a later part in a person's life, specifically womanhood, that they're women. So that's what you'll find. This particular one on the side, from my knowledge, from what I understand, is more of a coming of age for women, and then the ones on the chin represent the womanhood that you'll find. So it's a signifier in that way. But yeah, great question. I don't know if you have anything to add as well. I know that Mojaves do it as well. So Melody, I want to invite you too.
Yeah, so again, there's I think how I was mentioning, 574 nations, and every single one of them has different customs and practices, and facial tattoos is one of those. For every tribal community, the significance varies, but yes, and for Mojaves, we also practice facial tattoos, and for us, it's a more of beautification. There are some that you show clanship as well. And so the meanings vary across tribal nations. But
sure.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, so as I'm looking at this, do you mind if I just kind of go through them?
No, you can
Okay.
feel free.
Okay.
There's some good questions.
For sure. So just to answer the question about which river, we were at the Salt River, more towards, I couldn't tell you exactly where, but it was on the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. Not where everybody goes to raft necessarily, but off-site near Pole 1, I think is what the area is called, but it was outside of the area. And this segues into another question about photographing in the river. So two things, and I neglected to mention this, so I'm glad you asked, but Akimel Autumn refers to the river people. Akimel refers to the river that we represent, that we come from, which is the Gila River. On Akimel is the Salt River, and then Donna Autumn represents desert. So I wanted to honor all the Autumn peoples and the lifestyle that you find in both the Akimel Autumn and the Donna Autumn. So I wanted to do both desert and river or water. So for me, it was an artistic choice to ensure that I represented both of them. So that's why you'll see the desert and the river in both of those. I shot those over 2 different periods. The first photo shoot was October 24th, and the second one was later in November, which is why they referenced to how cold it was. There was a reference to how cold it was. For the photos that were purchased, we can share those, I'm sure, but all the information that you've seen about tonight's Zoom talk, you'll see 2 images that are readily used. I don't know if you can pop those on by chance, Janelle, but we can share those. But there were 2 images that were purchased for sure, and they're going to be on permanent. They're going to be within the collection, the permanent collection, sorry. And then just to go back to the tattoo question that I'm looking at as well, these ones were simulated and they were actually just painted on. So that's how that came about. Let's see. I'm seeing another one. The summer. Yeah. So this is reference to the tattoos, and just to Melody's point, some practice this, others don't. A lot of pueblos, as a Hopi, I know that we don't really practice that. But yeah, it varies from tribe to tribe, from people to people, nation to nation. So just it varies. I can't speak for all of them. But this other question that I'm looking at, plans to do a photo shoot for men. So that's something I was going to share as well, and that is in the works to do this for men. My plans are going to be interesting because one of the instances, like I said, to represent the desert and the water, is that a lot of people don't know this, but the Akimel Autumn, the river people here, one of the biggest resources that we used to rely on when we think about indigenous and regional is fishing. And so when Philip and myself were discussing what this could look like in the future, we want to try to find a way to create those traditional fishing utensils and tools that would have been used at that time. So there is something in the plans. We're still trying to iron out some things, but that's in the plans, as well as doing a photo shoot for elders as well. And then also exploring my other 2 tribes, the Pee-Posh and the Hopi. So great question. It segued into a great point I wanted to make. So what materials were used to make the skirt, and I'll go back to this other one, but we'll use willow bark for the one that you had saw that was brown and had looked like plant fibers, but that's what you would have seen, either willow or there is a tamarisk. They would just skin the actual, not skin it, but remove the bark and use that to weave those actual skirts that you had seen. So kind of like the little cartoon depiction, that's what it looked like. So but yeah, definitely that's what it looked like, or that's what they were made from. The cotton, the white version, was actually strung from cotton. And this is part of the other thing I wanted to mention, is that Autumn grew cotton, and they would have spun it to create the different items that you had seen. So for Mr. Smith, he actually had, he didn't grow the cotton, but he had actually gotten the raw cotton, spun it, and created the cotton version of that willow bark skirt that you had seen. And then the basket materials, they vary from weaver to weaver, but you'll often find them using that devil's claw to use as the kind of basis for it. And then they use willow. And there's other materials. It depends on region to region on what they use to make them. I don't know, Janelle, if you have some background in some of what you've seen, some of the baskets used or the materials used for them.
Well, for the burden basket, I remember a fellow using agave. So he would strip down the agave fibers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't read that part. It was specifically for the burden basket. Yeah, so you would use the saguaro, God, what is it? Not the skeleton, but
the ribs, the saguaro ribs.
Yeah, I'm sorry, thank you. The saguaro the saguaro ribs, and that's what's used to create the elongated frame. You would also use that, and it would be bound in a way to create the circle. And the fiber that was used was part the agave, and also with a mixture of some of that existing cotton that would have been grown in the region. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, just to clarify. Melody, do you see any questions that I didn't cover that I can?
Yeah, just the one question about outreach to public schools in the future. And, you know, as part of that work, I, you know, Kyle and I haven't really sat down to talk about what's next with the involvement with doing youth programming, but in the past, he currently works with, you know, the youth council. I currently work with the public schools for high schools, and you just kind of planted a seed for my brain of like, how can we do public outreach for this now? So I think it's a great idea, but at this point, I don't know, Kyle, if you have any plans.
Yeah, honestly, where it goes from here, I would like this to be a teachable or a teaching tool, if you will. So I, as the person who you know, took the photos and the photographer, if I can have these placed in places like schools, institutions, and have some programming associated with it so people understand the backstory that you all received here tonight, I would love that. So the outreach hasn't been fully thought out yet, but it will get there. It will get there.
I'm grateful, Melody and Kyle, for your time and for your creativity and how you serve your communities. We look forward to seeing all of you at our next installment of this series on December 8th, which will be live. And we'll be featuring Agustin Fernando Lopez, a multimedia artist and member of the Pasco Yaqui community. So check the events page of the Arizona State Museum website for details. And I hope everyone has a good night.